So welcome again, guys. My name is Arpit Pandit. Some of you already know me, but there are a few new people as well. So I have been in training business for more than 16 years, and I've been training CCIE, especially for more than 11 years. So in this particular course, how exactly are we going to achieve or approach our strategy, and what are we exactly going to do week by week, and what is expected from this course and what is expected from your side, and a little bit of introduction to the CCIE. So today we will actually do just the introduction, and also we will make sure that the EVNG is properly set up and a basic tour of EVNG just in case if you are new to EVNG. And the labs that we will start from tomorrow, because I think few more people are expected to join from tomorrow. So today we will just keep it to the introduction so that we know exactly what is expected from this course, and we get that information, right? So let me share my screen. So I'm going to mute you guys. So if you have any questions or any comments, just let me know into the chat while I am presenting. And feel free to ask any question also if you have into the chat. Yes, Kenneth. So we can discuss about this. I do have the files, and in case if you don't have the same iOS that we are using operating system, that also we can provide. So not an issue at all. But when it comes to SD-WAN, I think it would be better to use our OVA directly, because everything, the licensing and everything is already set up. But that will come later, because the first part of this phase one, we can call it, is routing and switching, where you will just need the lab files. So we can discuss about this, no worries. All right, so let me share my screen, and let me know if you guys can see the screen. If somebody can comment it into the chat and confirm. All right, thanks for confirmation. So zero to lab, what are we exactly going to do here? So as I say, it is the pathway to CCIE. Now, what happens most of the time is that you want to achieve CCIE goal, and CCIE is actually a very huge goal. It requires a lots of practice, but the practice actually depends on the foundational knowledge. Most of the people actually approach it this way. They try to gain the knowledge of all the technologies which is required, but the missing part is the practice part, because it needs a lots of practice, and you get a limited time, 8 hours only, and you need to make sure that you can get all the things done within time and then check it as well. So the practice part and doing the labs is a very important aspect of it. So let's see how exactly this course is designed and how can it be very helpful for your CCIE journey. So let me start. So first of all, let's talk about the course structure. What are we exactly going to get into this course? So this is a course where we are going to have sessions 3 days a week. Every week we will have 3 sessions, and each session will be 2 hours. And in these 2 hours, the first hour will be the instructor-led lab configuration. So we will actually take a topic, and for example, we are going to start with CDP and LLDP tomorrow. So we'll take that topic, and I will present you the lab in EVNG. I will configure the lab step by step, explaining things as well, and taking any questions if there are any confusions. And then once it is done, the second hour will be the participants need to configure the same lab. Now, the objective here is not to test your knowledge. Objective is not here to test your memory. It is to make sure that you learn something, you understand something, and then you immediately implement that. So what happens with that is that your understanding gets more solidified. So maybe there are some topics which you are already familiar of, right? But there might be some gap holes here and there. You want to bridge those gaps. So configuring the lab in front of me and making sure that you complete the lab will actually fix that. There will be some topics which are slightly bigger. For example, once we reach to the BGP configurations, or if we reach to, let's say, MPLS or DMVPN, it might be possible that a little bit of more explanation will be required. But remember, the main objective of this course is the hands-on, so to make sure that we have more practical configuration. So that's why the explanation part will be not in depth. But if you are part of our Zero to CCIE course already, which is a video series, you know that there are in-depth videos there in case if you want more information. But I'll provide you enough information about the topic so that you can complete the labs and you don't have any doubts. And of course, the reason we have kept it 3 days a week is because we want to make sure that once you are done with the labs for that week, and if you want to do them again, to make sure that you are good into that, repetition is the key. So you have 4 days to reconfigure the labs, ask me any questions, and we will be recording these sessions. So you can watch these recordings as many times as you like and as you want, so that you are very clear about what exactly you need to do for those particular topics. But as I was mentioning, there are some topics which will be bigger or need more explanation. So we might actually do it like 2 hours of instructor-led lab configuration, where I'll explain a little bit more and then configure the lab. And then second day, I'll give you the full 2 hours to do the configuration. So the ratio will remain same, whether we do it into the same day, 1 hour each, or whether it is other day. Now, timing, as you can see that it's 2 hours length of a single session. But that's just pack point. It's not exactly going to be 2 hours. Some topics will be smaller. We might end up earlier, but some topics might need more explanation, and the explanation will be in such a way that we can't break it up into 2 different days. So it might go a little bit over 2 hours as well in those days. So be prepared for like 1.5 hour to 2.5 hour window, not exactly 2 hours of the session. Because the goal is to make sure that we understand the topic, we see the practical right on the live Zoom session, and then we do the configuration live on the Zoom session, right? So that's why it is a completely hands-on approach. Again, once the lab is done, what you need to do is you need to send me the show command outputs, which I'll ask you which show commands you need to send me in the direct chat of Zoom session, so that I can see that you have completed the lab and the desired output is achieved. For example, if I want you to configure label distribution protocol between 2 routers, and if I'm asking you for the show LDP neighbor command output, then I will be able to see, okay, you have the neighborship already there. Or if I'm asking you to do some traffic engineering by changing the cost of OSPF, so a certain path is taken by the route. So I will ask you maybe an output of the trace route, so I can see the traffic or the packet is taking a particular path as it is expected, right? So these kind of things I may ask you into the lab, or in some other times, if the labs are pretty straightforward, then I might just ask you to let me know if it is reachable or not, point A and point B are reachable or not, and if it is, then we'll be good for that. Some other labs, it might need a little bit more checking, so that will vary as well. But this will be the basic structure, right? 3 days a week, 2 hours per day, instructor-led explanation of the topics, then you do the configuration, and then you send me the show commands. Try to make sure you send the show commands in the direct chat, not into the everyone window, because otherwise it will be a lot of output and I might not be able to see exactly who has sent what. So it's better to send a direct chat to keep the track of things, right? But after the class is done, the chat is also available. So in case if you want to get access to what exactly everyone has configured, you can ask me and I can send you the chat history as well. So not an issue about that, right? And if any issues, you can refer to the solution file. So basically, I will be providing you some labs, right? So we have some topologies in EVNG, and the labs that we are going to configure will be depending on these topologies. So we have divided this whole structure into 3 different phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is going to be routing and switching, where we will get into the configurations of switching, routing, and that actually includes even the transport technologies like MPLS, DMVPN, multicasting, quality of service, as well as the security configurations and the system level configuration like NTP, NAT, IPSLA. So that will be part of the phase 1. Phase 2 will be the software-defined networking, where we will actually see SD-WAN and SD-XS. And the phase 3 will be a smaller part, but an important part for exam, which is the Python programming automation, and configuration of all the different aspects of it, right? Like Postman, or I think they have, in the new one, they have removed the RESTconf. So if you're planning to take the exam after 20th September, there will be some things which are now removed, like Flex VPN is no longer there. So we can actually go through according to the latest syllabus, which is their latest configuration, which we need to do, right? But for every lab, I'll give you the instructions, what you need to do. I'll show you on the video how to solve it, but there will be a solution file as well. So just in case while you are doing it and you want to refer to solution file because you forgot a command or you don't remember exactly how to do a certain task, you can refer to the solution file. Again, this is not a test, so I'm not going to test you every day. When I say that 1 hour I'll do the lab and 1 hour you will have to do the configuration, it does not mean that I'm testing you. It just simply means that whatever you learn that day, you are reinforcing that thing by configuring it. That's it. So don't worry, you don't need to remember everything immediately. You can definitely refer to the solution file immediately when you are trying to configure the lab, right? So don't have an approach of testing yourself. Do a paradigm shift, and throughout this course, keep an approach of learning. So you are learning. So if you don't know something, don't go into the panic mode. Actually be happy that, okay, I don't know this thing. Now I'm going to learn and I'm going to get this information, right? So just have a learning attitude, and feel free to access the solution file to see how exactly things need to be done, right? Just a second. And of course, sometimes even the solution is not very clear. So what you can do is, if the solution file is not clear, you can definitely ask me any questions anytime. And when I say you can ask me any question anytime, actually it's not just limited to the Zoom session. So although the course is only 3 days a week, but the remainder of 4 days when you are maybe trying to do the labs again, or you're trying to read up something about the technology and you come up something and you want to get my opinion or want to know exactly how the things are working, you can ask us into our private CCIE group we have, or you can send me an email and also ask me there as well. So when we do not have the Zoom sessions, still you can ask me anytime, and I will try to answer you as soon as possible and as clearly as possible, right? So this is the basic course structure that we have. So what tools are we going to use in this course structure? So first of all, the tool we are using is EVNG, which works on VMware. So we would suggest to have a Windows PC because that works the best. Windows, or the if you are good in Linux environment, then you can use Linux PC as well. I am not very expert into Linux. I know my way around, but not much. So since I also use mostly Windows, so I use EVNG on Windows. But if you do have a MacBook, EVNG can still work on MacBook, no issues. And if you are using a MacBook and you face any issue with EVNG, we can have a direct session to see the issue or try to fix it up, right? Now, EVNG will be used for the routing, switching, SD-WAN, and the programmability part, right? So for all of these parts, we can use EVNG. And we have the SD-WAN part also virtualized. So I will be providing you OVA for that later into the phase 2 part. And we will be able to do all the practicals on EVNG. That's why today's session is also, the second part of this session will be about EVNG, to see that how to set it up and how to use it. If you have already been using EVNG, then it's great because you're already set up. But in case if you are new, we will see how exactly this needs to be done, right? And any basic questions if you have about, or any issues if you come up with setting up EVNG, you can definitely get in touch with me as well, either in today's session or later as well. We can talk about it, right? Excuse me. Yeah, so I got a question from Ahmed. We should download VMware Workstation Player 17. Yeah, that will work perfectly fine, Ali. So you can use any player, workstation player, the latest one or the one that you have. That will be perfectly all right. You can do that. Now, in EVNG, topologies are already set. So basically the OVA file that we have shared into the welcome email, and I'll show you that also in a minute. That OVA file has all the configuration already set up. So when you import it into VMware, you will have a working EVNG already there with the proper IOSs installed and licenses configured for those IOSs for Cisco, and all the topologies that we are going to use, at least initially. So in EVNG, what happens is that if you want to introduce a new topology or upload a new topology, it's a very simple zip file. So in case if I feel a need later for a particular topic that I need a different topology to explain that part, I can send you a new zip file, which you can import into VMware. I'll show you that as well, how to do. And it will be very easy to do that. But for most of the topics that we are going to cover, the topologies are already loaded into EVNG and they are ready to use. And the lab files, as I mentioned earlier, will be sent every week. And how we are going to do this is that I think you already have received my email with the first week's lab files, because this week we have the introduction today. So we will start from tomorrow for the labs. So we will have only 2 labs this week. So I have sent you those 2 labs, CDP and the subnetting part. But after that, I will also immediately also send you this week the labs for the next week and the solution files as well. So the reason for this is that so that you are ready, you know that what topics need to be covered next week. So if you want to read up about it, or if you are a 0 to CCIE student, you can go and watch the in-depth videos there and be ready for the technology. And also maybe you even want to try the labs yourself beforehand, before the actual explanation into the next week when I start, so that if you have any questions, you will be ready into the Zoom session for the next week, right? All right, so I got a question from Enrico. Are the same files installed for 0 to CCIE labs? Yes, so the 0 to CCIE labs that we do, that also has the same topology. So if you have those files, that means you already know what files we are going to use for this program as well. Because 0 to CCIE is the video-based in-depth program, and this is the hands-on program where I will be here configuring all the labs for you guys, step by step explaining them, and then requesting you also to do the lab. So this is more like action approach. We want to make sure that you just don't watch the videos, understand the topic, but then either don't have the motivation or don't have time to do the labs or to do the practical. So that's why in this course, we have this 3 days every week, because motivation is overrated. We want to make sure that we have the disciplined, consistent approach, right? So if you have a particular plan to do it every week, then you actually have to do it, because you have to show up and configure the labs and watch me do the labs. So that way you don't need to set up or free up some time yourself. And because in that case, we always look for motivation. I'm feeling motivated to do the labs, but in a month or so, the motivation goes down. But if somebody is there who is pushing you, like me, then you are going to do it. More likely you're going to do it, right? Because that's the issue we saw in most of the cases throughout the world. There are boot camps, 5 days, 10 days boot camps, where they teach everything very fast and it goes everything very fast. And then after that, it's up to you to do the huge work and you feel yourself out of motivation, right? So that's what we wanted to cover or to fix. And this program is created for that particular purpose. Sure, Enrico. All right, so lab files will be sent every week for the next week. And the solution files will also be sent along the lab files. Again, the same reason is we are not trying to test you guys. We are trying to make sure that you are having a learning mindset and you are learning right now. So in the learning phase, feel free to look for the solution as many times as you like to make sure the things stick in your mind. You remember those things, and feel free to ask me any number of questions during the session, or even when you have off days, you're free to ask me any question, right? Feel free to ask me any questions. As I mentioned, during the off days in a week, students are encouraged to do the labs again, and feel free to contact the instructor in case of any questions. Now, here is the thing. You can do the labs which we already covered this week. So let's say the 3 days we have the sessions. and the remaining off days, you can do the same labs again if you feel like there are some topics need more practice. And since I will be sending you the next week's labs beforehand, you can try those labs as well. And you will see that repetition is the key, as long as becoming natural into any technology. Like for example, BGP, if you know how to configure BGP summarization, it's a good thing. But if you do it at least 4 or 5 times throughout this course, or 6, 7 times, it will become very natural to you. In the exam, you will not have to access the Cisco documentation to look for the exact syntax, exact command. So we want to make sure that at least for the core technologies, you should not run for the Cisco documentation, because in exam, Cisco documentation is available, but the time is of the essence, right? So you don't want to run to the Cisco documentation for every single task. Most of the tasks, you should be very natural and you should know the syntax, and that can come only with the practice, right? So every week I would suggest you to do the labs from the last week, and the next week do the labs from the last 2 weeks, and then third week do the labs from the last 3 weeks. So what happens is that this way you have the repetition as well, and making sure that you are natural. There will be some topics you will say, this is something which I already know very well now, so you can skip those and you don't need to repeat them again and again. But if there are some topics you feel I don't remember all the commands, or it's not very fast for me, you may try to do them again and again, right? That's why you will see that we will have a few breaks also in the middle. So we do have 4 days off every week, but there might be some weeks off after a significant part of the program is done, so that you can go through some of the labs again, or the parts where you want repetition, and to make sure that you are understanding them properly and configuring them properly, right? So that is the basic structure and the tools used here. So if you have any questions or any confusion, you can send me into the chat about this, and feel free to ask me anything as well, right? Now, let's talk about the exam, because we are here to make sure that we are prepared for the CCIE exam. And CCIE has many different modules. We have wireless, we have collaboration, we have security. And then, of course, the one which is in focus here is the CCIE routing and switching. This is the older name. The new name is the CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure, right? CCIE EI, they call it. Excuse me. So I think many of you might already be familiar with the structure, but let's go through it. What exactly they expect you into the exam, and how the exam is structured. So exam is actually divided into 2 parts. The qualification exam, which is earlier it is used to be called CCIE Qual, and there was a dedicated exam for CCIE. But in the version which we are using currently, it's the written exam Encore. So Encore exam is also one of the CCNP certification exam. So if you want to do CCNP Enterprise, you need to do 2 exams. One is the core and one is the elective. And the core is the required exam, Encore. And elective, you can choose from many available options, and you become CCNP. But when you do Encore as part of the CCNP certification track, you also qualify to book for the lab exam. So this is the qualifying exam to book the lab if you want to do the CCIE actual lab exam reservation, right? So this is the first thing you need to do. And once this is done, or if you have already done this, then you go for the lab exam. So the lab exam that currently active is the CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.0, right? But I think, 20th September this year, they are going to change it to 1.1. But it's a minor change, means roughly 20% things have been changed. Some things have been removed, some things have been added. But they have not completely changed the structure of the exam. So the structure that I'm going to explain you now is going to remain same. It's just that the topics, few topics are modified, and some of the software versions they are using are upgraded, right? So that is the main difference that is going to be in version 1.1. And of course, this course is 26 weeks. So we are definitely going over the 20th September limit. So whenever the new updates come, and if I find more information about them, so we already know what is going to be changed, and we are going to incorporate that into this program. But apart from that, if I find more information while we are doing it, and when the people start taking labs, if we find out if there is a topology change or if there are some certain things need to be taken care of, we are going to include that as well into this program, right? Now, the exam itself, talking about the structure of the exam, the lab exam. So it's an 8 hours hands-on based exam. So it's a practical exam. Earlier, like in the older versions, there used to be 2 hours of troubleshooting and then 6 hours of configuration. So it was literally the whole configuration. The whole 8 hours you would have done configuration. But in the new structure that they are using since 2020, now the exam is divided into 2 parts. So the first part is the design part, which is actually not configuration. So this part is 3 hours, and you get MCQ type of implementation. You have multiple choice questions. They might show you an image, and in that image, maybe an employee is sending an email to the network administrator explaining the issue, and then they might ask you the possible solution with giving you multiple choice questions. So if you have gone through the theory properly, this part should be easy, because this part depends on the knowledge of your fundamental knowledge of your technology. You don't need to configure anything into the design part, right? But the second part, which is the DOO part, deploy, operate, and optimize, this is where the configuration comes. And this part is 5 hours. So you get 5 hours, and you get 3 major sections into this part. So the routing switching section, which will include your routing, switching, transport technologies like MPLS, DMVPN, multicasting, quality of service, IP services like DHCP, DNS, infrastructure services like logging or SNMP, and security configuration. So all these things, SD-WAN is the second section. Sorry, SDN is the second section. SDN, or Cisco also calls it SDI, software defined infrastructure. This actually contains 2 different parts. You are using the software defined networking into the WAN side, so SD-WAN, and using the software defined networking into the campus network in the LAN side, which is called SDA, software defined access. So this is the second part of the exam, second section. And third section is the automation and programmability. So this is the section where you will see different types of data structures like JSON, Yang, and programmability part actually includes Python. So Python on a box, on box Python we call it, and also the configuration of EEM scripts using Python or vice versa. So that part is the third part. Now in the exam, actually the routing and switching part is the biggest part, because SDN, although as intimidating as it seems, it's mostly GUI based, graphical user interface based. So once you understand the concepts and once you know where to go to do the different tasks, it's not actually very time consuming to configure these things. Routing and switching part is huge. As you can see, not only it contains all the switching protocols, all the routing protocols, MPLS, DMVPN, QoS, multicasting. So huge things are there. So that part takes the most time. So you get 5 hours to complete these 3. And our goal should be to make it in 3.5 hours. So basically from this program, what you are expected to finish by the end of this 6 months is the accuracy part. Because in the exam, if you are not accurate, if you have made many mistakes in the configuration, you might be done in 2 hours. And of course, you will fail the exam if that happens. So we need to make sure that whatever we are configuring is accurate. We are not making any mistakes. So that's why we will do all the single protocol labs, and then we will do the multi-protocol labs. You guys also need to do it, and make sure that you understand every single part of the labs that we are doing, right? Once you understand everything and you can do it without any mistakes or any errors, the accuracy part is done. But if you ask me, after this course is done, let's say we are done with 26 weeks, can I go for the exam next day? No, I would not suggest that, because although you will be equipped with the knowledge to complete the lab, but you will not be equipped with the necessary speed to complete it in 5 hours, right? So then I would suggest you to go through the multi-protocol labs at least 5 to 10 times, maybe set up 15 to 20 days, maybe a month. Everyone has a different pace to do the labs again and again, not to cram anything, not to just remember anything, but actually to get that pace that you need into the exam, to do things faster, right? In exam, they use Logitech K120 keyboards and Logitech mouses. So maybe purchase those only. So you have the habit to use those particular mouses, hardware, keyboard and mouses. You don't have any issue with the mouses, no mice, right? So you don't have any issue with the particular layout of the keyboard and all these things. Get into the zone, get into the groove, get the pace, because accuracy is already there. Now you need to get the speed to get things done. And when do you know you are ready for the exam? Excuse me. You would know you would be ready for the exam if you can complete the routing and switching section in 1.5 hours, SDN section in 1.5 hours, and programmability section into 30 minutes max. So basically 3.5 hours, you are done with the exam. And it is very crucial to do it in 3.5 hours to 4 hours, because first of all, in the exam, they might change few things here and there. So to accommodate them, to understand them, maybe to see Cisco documentation CD, to understand maybe there is a new thing we did not cover, that particular aspect of the thing. Like we will cover all the topics, but you might see a particular requirement which we might not cover, or if we covered, you forgot about it. So you can actually have time to go to the Cisco documentation CD and see the command structure. Second, which is the more important thing, is that it is a huge exam and a lots of configuration. So you are going to make some typos, right? You are going to make some configurational mistakes. So having that precious 1 hour, 1.5 hours remaining, you can go through the whole lab again, see your configuration, and to make sure you didn't make any mistakes, any typos, where you didn't intend to type something and you type something different. And that does tend to happen. Like I did my CCIE routing and switching. I finished my lab in I think 4.5 hours or 5 hours. And when I went through it again, I was able to see that I had made some 2 or 3 mistakes which could have make it or break it, right? So it could have actually cost me my CCIE number. So I fixed those because I had time. So that time is very important. And that's why you need to make sure that you can finish the exam in 3.5 to 4 hours. The DO part, right? Deploy, operate, and optimize part. Design part, actually, you will see you don't even need more than an hour. Even in the exam, even if you're going slowly, because the questions are not many and the time is plenty there. To be honest, I really think they should have given the design part only 2 hours, and they should have given the DO part 6 hours. But of course, this is the structure they have gone through it. So we have to just deal with it, right? And we have to make sure we can complete the lab in the stipulated time, right? And in the exam, you will see, especially in the DO part, the devices will be partially pre-configured. So you will not configure them from the scratch. There will be some pre-configuration already there. And in some cases, there might be a little bit wrong configuration also you might have to fix. For example, if they are giving you an Ether channel configuration, there might be, you need, if you're using a Ether channel negotiation protocol, you need one side as the active negotiator, other side as passive negotiator. Maybe both sides would be configured as passive. So of course, Ether channel will not come up. So you will have to go and fix the minor issues as well. So in the exam, you don't have a dedicated troubleshooting section like you used to have before, but there will be troubleshooting tasks here and there, but not very major, not something earth-shattering. And the pre-configuration will be there. So you just need to configure enough things more to make it working, right? So that's why that actually makes it more important to understand the concepts, to understand the theory, because you need to know how things should look when they are completely done and what is missing in the configuration, right? Excuse me. So that's the DO part. That's the lab exam structure, right? And you will need to configure the devices as per instructions. So there will be instructions in the exam. So our single protocol labs that we are going to do throughout this course, they will also have the instruction-based PDF. So the PDFs that I sent you already and the ones which I'll send you every week, they will also have the instruction-based configuration. We call them the labs. And when we will come to the multi-protocol lab, you will see a very near similar lab as near as possible to the actual exam. So you will be well versed with how exactly they ask questions and what important things you need to remember before you go for the exam, right? So that you don't make any major mistakes. For example, many times in the exam, you are not supposed to remove any configuration to fix a thing. So you should actually make changes into the configuration, but you are not supposed to remove anything from the configuration. So these kind of things I will also explain you when we get to the multi-protocol lab. So don't worry, that part is also covered. All right. So is it okay now? I just got a message that my screen was frozen. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. So any question about this part? Don't worry, because the lab exam is something which we are going to imitate in our implementations also. So you will see plenty of structure information as we go along and as we reach to the multi-protocol lab part, right? All right. So the next part is how can this program help you, right? So am I audible, guys? Let me know into the comment. All right, thanks for confirmation. So how this program can help you? So the main thing missing in a lot of programs out there is a lot of practice. Like, for example, when I was preparing for my CCIE and I wanted to learn a lot of concept, I wanted to do a lot of practice, and I started looking for the available courses. Most of the courses I saw were boot camps, 5 days boot camps or 10 days boot camps max. So $7,000 to $8,000, 10 days boot camp. And what you need to do there is you go there, you learn a lot of things, and then it's done. So they actually configure everything. Maybe you can also configure at the same time or stay longer into the night and do it. And it was just too much for me. I thought, no, I need a approach where I have time to breathe. I have time to I have time to understand what I'm learning. I have time to implement it enough times so that I become natural into the technology. And that part was missing there, right? So that's why we thought that a lot of practice part was missing into the programs. Like, we also have a very good 0 to CCIE program. It is a very successful program, which is the in-depth video training of all the CCIE blueprint, right? But in that program also, we have all the labs as well, so that you should be able to do it on your own. But the problem is that people either do not get time or they don't find the motivation to do it on their own, as I was mentioning earlier. So that's why we thought, okay, we need to create a program where the instructor performs this configuration, and we also do it into the same Zoom session, so that we are on the same page and we keep doing the most important thing needed for the exam, the practice part, right? Yeah. So yeah, Kenneth says that he took the bootcamp in 2000 with physical racks. So 2000, wow, that's a long time ago. To be honest, I was not even in networking field in 2000. I started my career actually in 2006. I did my CCIE in 2012, routing switching, and 2014 service provider. But yeah, that's a long time ago, and definitely with physical racks. And I'm assuming you must have done a lot of ISDN configuration or some older technologies like frame relay as well. Yeah, that's right. True. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we have a lot of practice here of the configurations. So this program addresses this issue. And what is the plan here for that? So the plan is that all the single protocols labs configured and explained by the instructor. So I will do it, I will configure it, and I will be explaining while I'm configuring it, followed by the configuration by the candidates, by you guys, so that you immediately do the lab again. And then again in the off days, you can do that as well. So software-defined networking also, we go in depth. Now in SD-WAN and SDA, you will see once you understand the concept, how things work, it's actually simpler than MPLS or multicasting or QoS. SD-WAN is very, very logical, very simple, and very configuration is easy. SDA is also, it's Microsoft-like. You have the complete things on GUI. And what you are doing is you are onboarding the devices in your LAN, and you are managing them and managing all aspects of devices, whether it is the onboarding of the device, whether you are doing the macro segmentation by using the virtual tags, VNs, or whether you're doing the micro segmentation using the SGTs, the security tags. security group text, they call it, or scalable group text. So you can see that the concept wise, when we come to that part and when I'll explain you how these things work, you will see that these are not very difficult. But of course, you need that particular approach to understand things. And then, of course, comes the practical part. So we do have the SD-WAN. We have the complete virtualization of SD-WAN, but SDA requires a lots of resources, especially the DNA center. So we do not have that. But once you reach to that level, and let's say you already passed your NCORE exam and you are ready to, let's say you are ready to book the exam in maybe next 6 months, maybe next 4 months, you can actually take the Cisco practice labs. So these are like $50 for a 4-hour session, which is dedicated for the SDA. So I will explain you all the technologies. We have all the explanation and we have all the configuration which you need to understand. Plus, if you are our CCIE 0 to CCIE student, we also have videos there where I also do the Cisco practice lab and I explain it step by step, right? So you can watch that also if you are a student there, and then you can book that particular session, because that's the best way. It's very similar to the real exam as well. So it's a great way to do the DNA center implementation. But that's a very small part of it. And once you understand, once you get the heck of it, it's very actually easy, right? Programmability and automation practical. So we are going to get into Python. We will understand the basics of Python, the networking part of the Python, how to actually retrieve or configure routers using the on-box Python module. So we will get into the detail of that as well. Using Postman to retrieve some information or to use the API tools to configure a few things on the devices. I think the netconf is removed in the new CCIE blueprint. So we will not cover that. But in case if you want to know netconf, that time you can let me know and we can cover that as well, just as a extra topic, because that is now removed from the exam, right? So this is how we approach. And the full actual exam like multi-protocol labs practice. So we will have full multi-protocol labs, although we have broken it into 2 parts, routing switching multi-protocol lab and the SDN multi-protocol labs, because it requires actually a lot of resources. You will see that the SD-WAN OVA is a separate OVA I will send you later, because it needs its own dedicated 16 gig RAM, or if you have 32 gig RAM, even better, the devices will perform faster. But you will get it similar to the exam. So when you go for the exam, you will see similar topology, similar questions. So you know that the environment is same. And then if few things are changed, because you have learned everything, you are not cheating, you are not just cramming everything and going for the exam, you are going with a systematic approach, learning everything, practicing everything for the long time, all the technologies, practicing the multi-protocol labs enough so that you can do it in 3.5 hours. Then when you go to the exam and few things are changed, you will be able to cop up with that, right? You will be able to accommodate that. Most of the people actually fail because either they lack the theoretical knowledge or the fundamental knowledge, or they lack the practice part. So they take a lot of time to configure the exam. And then if they come up with a new question, they don't have enough time to go to the Cisco documentation and find out the solution. So that's where the issue actually comes. And also they don't have the time to check their configuration, which is the most crucial thing. The single most important thing I can tell you: check the configuration and save the configuration. Yeah, saving is also very important. You have to save the configuration often, because before they grade you, before they check your configuration later, they do recycle all the routers. They do reload and restart all the routers and switches and devices. So if you haven't saved your configuration, it's gone, and you might fail the exam in that case, right? So make sure that these things are taken care as well. But again, when we come to the multi-protocol part, I will explain all these things in detail, so you don't need to worry about it. I got you covered there, right? And of course, troubleshooting tips. And remember, troubleshooting, people always get scared of troubleshooting, but actually the easiest part is troubleshooting. And I know it's a contrary opinion. The reason I'm telling you is that troubleshooting directly depends on your fundamental knowledge of the technology. Like, for example, think about OSPF. Neighborship is not coming up. If you already know what things are needed for the neighborship, you are going to just check exactly those points and you will know what is missing. Maybe MTU is mismatching. Maybe the timers are mismatching. Timers must match in OSPF. Maybe authentication is misconfigured. Maybe the area type is not matching. So you know what things need to be checked. troubleshooting becomes easy, right? And there is an approach I will explain you as well. Control plane troubleshooting, data plane troubleshooting, how exactly you should approach. If the control plane is not working, your data plane is definitely not going to work. So we can actually handle this approach. Just like a doctor, a good doctor will exactly know what to check, what tests to do to exactly find out the issue. So you just need to become a good doctor of networking if you want to do, or if you want to be good or be better in troubleshooting, right? So that is something also we will talk when we get to that point. So this is how this program can actually help you, right? And of course, my support will be there throughout the course duration. And as I told you that for every session, we will have the recorded session. You will have the access to the recording on our Zero to Lab portal. And this access is lifetime access. So you can actually get back to it anytime. And if you have any questions, you have my email ID, you can get to me during the course, or even after a course, like after a year or so, if you have another suddenly a question and you want to ask me, of course, from the CCI part, I will be happy to answer you. There is no issue. You don't need to think, okay, the course is finished, I can't ask anything else. It's not like that. But of course, it has to be within the CCI domain. If you ask me something about the rocket science or how to perform an operation of someone, I will not be able to help you there, right? So only within the my expertise domain. All right. Last point is the lifetime access to the class recordings, as I already mentioned. So you don't need to worry about this. This is also, we got you covered there. All right. Now, what you can expect from this course is clear. Now, what's expected from you? So yeah, we do have some expectations from you guys also, but these are simple expectations. I think you guys will be able to fulfill them. First of all, just show up. Like every week, we have only 3 sessions. We are not trying to bombard you with 6 sessions in a week that you have no chance of doing any leeway. So just try to show up into every live session. In case if you can't, then of course the recording will be available. So it's not an issue. But of course, if you are in the live session, it's a different feeling. It's like you're in a classroom and you have to do the things which you don't find motivation enough if you are doing it on your own, right? Do the labs. So when I finish the lab, then you should do the lab. So don't feel lazy. Try to do the lab right in the Zoom session. So you are done for that. So once the Zoom session is finished, you don't have any pending task to do. Of course, you can do it again during the off days, which I would encourage to do. But at least in the Zoom session, you should do the lab that I have just finished doing, right? And ask questions. So feel free to ask any questions, any technical questions or anything about the labs or anything else. And I will be happy to answer with the best of my knowledge, right? So, and be consistent. So this is something which will happen if you just show up. That part, the first point actually covers the last point. If you just show up, you will be automatically consistent. You don't need to worry anything else much because the structure is completely taken care by us, right? Now about the instructor, who is this guy? So actually I'm talking about myself. So I have 16 years of network training experience. I think mentioned this before. So more than 11 years of CCI training experience. And I have actually taught more than 60 to 70 CCIs who actually passed the CCI exam. Few of them actually passed in the first attempt also. So I have a good experience of how to tackle the CCI training. I myself am a CCI routing and switching and service provider certified. And the practical experience from consultation work with major service providers. So I also often every now and then provide consultation work on the CCI level to major service providers. Like in Germany, I was with Versatel, and in India, I was with NTT, which is a Japanese service provider company. And I was actually helping them in some of the implementation of SD-WAN. Although they were not using Cisco SD-WAN everywhere, but they did have a Viptela and some implementations. And also I did some in-house training for Versatel also in Germany, where I did perform some training and gave training to the employees there, right? So apart from this, there were many other companies where I did the consultation work. So I do have some practical experience as well, how exactly things are implemented. And that can also be helpful in our journey throughout this course. All right, so let's get started, right? Any questions? Let me know before we get to the EVNG part. So the email that I have sent you, it has also a link to download the OVA file, and that link actually takes you to this place in Dropbox, where you will see that there is an OVA file, ZTL02lab, and an EVNG client pack. So what happens is that when you open EVNG and you want to click on the device to open a PuTTY session, for that you need to have the PuTTY installed, and then you need to, sometimes you have to modify the registry also in Windows to do that. And for that purpose, it's actually the best way is to use the EVNG client pack, Windows client pack. So if you do have Windows machine and install the EVNG Windows client pack, then you will be able to use PuTTY as a default program. If you already have secure CRT or super PuTTY or something, you can use that as well. But by default in exam, you will see that every router session or every router terminal opens separately in a PuTTY session. So it's a good idea to actually keep that practice, to have the different PuTTY sessions open, and then practice it with multiple windows open, instead of using secure CRT with multiple tabs, or doing like what I do, super PuTTY with multiple tabs. But I can do it because I already did my CCIE, so I got that privilege, right? But I would suggest you guys to keep the separate tabs in PuTTY. That will be a better idea, right? So once you download these two files, let's say you install the EVNG Windows client pack. So you will see that after that, when you go to the C drive and program files, you have an EVNG folder. And in that EVNG folder, you have a bunch of registry files. So if you do want to use PuTTY, they already have PuTTY also into the EVNG pack. So all you need to do is to run this particular command. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Yeah, so you can see that Windows 10 64-bit PuTTY.reg. I think this making bigger, it just makes the icons bigger. So let's make it go back to this one. Excuse me. So you can see Win7 64-bit, Ultra VNC, Wireshark, PuTTY, Secure CRT, and Super PuTTY. Or I think Super PuTTY I have created this. It might not be there in there. But if you're using Secure CRT, you can also use this registry file. Just double click on it. And do you want to allow this app to open? Yes. And adding information of the registry. So just say yes here, right? So what will happen with this? It will make it the default telnet application for your sessions, so that when you open the browser, open EVNG, you will automatically come to your PuTTY or Secure CRT session when you open them. So if you are using PuTTY, just do this one, which is the Windows 10 64-bit PuTTY, right? And once you are done with this, then if you have downloaded this OVA file also, you can import it into the VMware. So install any VMware like VMware Workstation Player version 17 or whatever the latest version is. Once that is installed, you need to use this OVA file to import there, right? So let me go to the VMware. I already have the VMware. Yeah, I'm also using VMware Workstation Player 17. So here what you need to do is you need to go to the player file and open. Either you can do this or if you already have VMware installed, you can directly go to the file, the OVA file, and just double click on it. And if it is associated with VMware Workstation, it will open into the VMware Workstation, right? So let's open this. So you can see this is the file 02lab.ova. Open it. You need to give it a name. So whatever name you like, I would suggest to give it the name 02lab. So you remember it is for this course. Import it and just wait for this importing so that our EVNG will be set up, right? So let's wait for this. So if you already have EVNG, I think like Kenneth was saying, you already have, right? You were mentioning. So in that case, I can send you the zip files for the topologies. So you can import them and use them. And also the iOS file location to download them so that you have the same iOS that we are using for this particular course. All right. So once everything is imported, as you can see, it will show you something like this. Now you can see that it has allocated the 8 GB RAM. So if your system has, let's say if your desktop or laptop has 16 gig of RAM, then keeping 8 gig is enough here. But if you have higher RAMs, then let's say 32 gig RAM or more, you can increase this as well. To be honest, for the routing switching part, most of the labs, you will not need more than 8 gig. But for the SD-WAN part, it's better to have a 32 gig RAM in your system, so that at least 16 gig you can provide to the SD-WAN solution itself, right? But that will come into the second phase of the configuration, so it has some time for that. So then you click on the play virtual machine. Excuse me. So once you boot the OVA, you wait for it to boot. And you wait for it to show you the IP address it has received from your system. Sure, Luis. So basically, we go to the VMware, and let's say after you downloaded the OVA file, you go to the VMware and into the player file and open. So you just need to this, and or you can press Ctrl+O to open the location of your OVA file, and that's how you import it, right? And after that, you just need to give a name and click on import, or you can directly go to the file location and double click on the OVA file, and it should also open into the VMware. Sure. So now you can see that once it is booted, it will show you something like this, where it's the CentOS, a Linux operating system. It shows you the command evng and then use HTTP 192.168.1.150. Now, in your case, the IP address might be different because it is taking it from the local network. So make sure that you do notice the IP address and then you open it into a browser. You don't need to log into this evng because we already set it up. But in case if you do, the username is root and the default password is EVE. So you can already see it here, the first line, evng default root password is Eve. So you can do that, but it's not needed, right? So let me go ahead and open this IP address 1.150. So when you open that IP address into the browser, it shows you this Eve prompt, where again it is asking you the username and password. This username and password is not same as the CLI because it is the browser username password, right? HTTPS username and password. So this is admin and the password is Eve. Admin and Eve sounds like Adam and Eve, right? So easy to remember. Admin and the Eve, the password is right there in front of your eyes, EVE. So very hard to forget, right? Once you open this, you will see that some of the topologies are preloaded here. We have the base lab. We have, for example, CDP, Ether channel, MAC addresses, MST, STP, VLANs, VTP. So these labs are already loaded. So what will happen is I'll send you the PDF lab. And when you open the PDF for the lab, you will see that the very first line, it will say, open this topology or open that topology. So you know that which topology to use for that particular question there, right? So let's say if that particular lab that day says open the base lab, so you click on that and you click on open here. So once you open the lab, it will show you something like this. And for most of the routing part, we are going to use this topology where we have 8 routers connected in this particular manner, you can see. And once you see these devices, you can start using them after you boot them up. And there are a few things I need to tell you. So if you have already been using evng, it's well and good. But if it's new to you, what you need to do and what you need to be careful about the configuration. So first of all, first thing first, let's start the devices. How do we start the devices? There are multiple methods. You can right click on the device and click on start. You can select all the devices with the drag and drop like this, and then right click on any one device and say start selected. So all devices will be started, or a partial set of devices will be started. Or you can go on this left-hand side menu. And if you go to the more actions, start all nodes. So you can do that as well, right? Start all nodes. So let's do that. Just to give you an example. Now, in some of the labs, there is some of the topologies, there is pre-configuration. So, for example, if I want to teach you something about BGP, and if you are going to do a lab about BGP, we don't want to waste our time into configuring IP address everywhere, right? So the IP addresses are pre-configured on all the routers, especially in some labs like in this one. So you will see that into the configuration, the pre-config, there is a startup configuration which is already there. But first thing first, we started the devices, right? And you can see that if the devices turn blue and this play sign is there, that means the devices are on. Or you can also click here on the nodes into the menu, right? So again, left-hand side, the menu nodes, second item. When you click on that, it shows you all the devices here. And it shows you the play button here as well, that if you want to start, stop, or do a particular action here, right? So devices are started. Now, if you have already installed the EVNG client pack, which I was showing you into the C Windows program files, C program files, and if you have already executed the registry file, then you should be able to click on the device and it should ask you to open the program. Like in your case, it might ask you open PuTTY or open Secure CRT. In my case, I had installed Super PuTTY. So it is asking me, do you want to open Super PuTTY? You click open and you can see it opens the console of the router. And from here onwards, I can start configuring the device, right? And you will see that there is some pre-configuration already there. You can see interfaces already have configured IP addresses. And apart from this, there is nothing. So I think show IP protocols, you can see no routing protocol, nothing is configured. Just the IP address thing is there into the pre-configuration, right? So let's say you go ahead and start configuring this lab. And now let's say you have just to give you an example, you have a lab. There are 10 instructions, 10 steps you need to perform. And you are going step by step, do this, do that, do this, right? So you go to the device and you start configuring. Let's say one of the requirement was to configure OSPF. So you go ahead and say router OSPF 1, network 12, and let's say after this, I also have the area 0, range something. So some configuration is there, right? So I have done that. And now I'm on the point number 5 in my lab, and I don't feel like doing the lab currently. So this is, I'm not talking about the Zoom session. There you should do the complete lab. But let's say you are doing it again in the home and you want to take a break, or maybe you need to shut down your device and you want to continue from this point, right? You want to resume your configuration from this point. You don't want to configure OSPF again or whatever you have already configured in the lab. So in that case, you can save your configuration, copy, run, start, copy running config to startup config, or write memory. Write memory is my favorite command because the short form for write memory is WR. So it will save the configuration. Now, once you do the WR or save the configuration, now even if you shut down the device, let's say if I go ahead and stop the device, router 1, and you shut down the EVNG, you come back later and you start router 1 again, you will see that it will remember your configuration and it will show you that it's there, right? So the configuration will be there and you can continue your work from that point onwards. So from here, for example, if I check show IP protocols, you can see now it is showing OSPF is, in matter of fact, configured, or store and section OSPF. You can see the configuration you had done is there, right? So it hasn't lost that configuration. So you can continue from here. So what I want to say is this. After you start the devices, you will see that there is some pre-configuration, and this pre-configuration will always be there because it is part of the pre-config files. But you can add the more things to it according to the requirement of the lab. And if you have only done partial things and you want to save your configuration to do it next time, the remaining things, you can save the configuration and you see that it retains that information. But let's say you want to refresh this lab. So you want to do this lab again from the beginning, right? So that means I have to remove all the configuration that I have done because I want to do it again. So you don't need to manually remove anything from the devices. What you can do is you can again go to the left-hand side menu, more actions, and you can click on wipe all nodes. When you do a wipe all nodes, it actually removes all the configuration that you have done and set the device back to the pre-configuration, which is just the IP addressing. So if I do that, all the configuration from the devices will be gone, except the pre-config, which is already there, like IP addressing, which was already there. So whatever you have configured and saved, that will be gone. So let me show you that again. If I start router 1 and let's go to the session. And now if I check again, show IP protocols, you can see OSPF is gone. Show run section OSPF. There's nothing, right? So gone with the wind, gone in 60 seconds, gone girl. These are the only few movie names I could remember right now, right? So basically, that's how you can actually get back to the pre-config. But don't worry. If you see, the pre-configuration is still there. IP addressing and everything is intact. So again, when you start the lab, you start a new topology like this. Everything is already there, which needs to be there, pre-configuration. You start configuring it. If you stop midway and want to resume later, you can save the configuration. Don't worry. If you want to start over, just wipe all configuration and it will go back to the base configuration, right? So any question about this? Let me know into the comment. Or if it's clear, just give me a thumbs up or okay. All right. So apart from this, okay. Yeah, I see. So JC is saying had a hard time because hardware HP was on my machine, but I got it to work. Okay, that's good. Good to know. So just a second. So now you can see that different labs will have different topologies, and then you can see there is a CCIE multi-protocol lab also. This is actually routing and switching multi-protocol lab. It's not the SD-WAN multi-protocol lab, but yeah, we will actually be using this, which is actually the same lab that you get into the CCIE currently. So it's not something that it's not something that Cisco hides. Cisco actually publishes the official lab diagram because it's not a design exam. They don't want to test your design skills. They want to test your configuration skills. So they have no issue in showing you the lab. So in this particular case, we have data center connected to the headquarters, to the internet, and to two different branches using the service provider. Now in the real exam blueprint, you will see that there are two more branches. Of course, branch 1 and branch 2 are missing here because those are the SD-WAN branches. And for that, we have a separate OVA, separate lab, because otherwise it becomes too much memory and processor requirement, right? So this is something we'll do when we come to the multi-protocol lab. And of course, if we find out there are a few other labs or there is some changes, we will incorporate those changes as well into these labs, right? So that's how you have to set up EVNG. So make sure that your EVNG is set up and ready like this. You can open the devices, you can access them. Excuse me. By the way, you can see that if I go to the edit, the images that we are using are these two images. For layer 3, we are using 15.7.3 from May 2018 compilation, and Linux layer 2 for switches L2 high iron, which is also from 2018. So if you are not going to use this OVA to deploy, if you already have your EVNG and you just want to set it up for our course, then I will have to send you the topologies into the zip files, and I will also have to send you a link to download these exact two images and set them up into your EVNG. So I think Kenneth, you need this, so I will send you after this session. And also I will send you a file to show you how to install the license part of these images, because these are the IOL images, iOS over Linux, and they do need a certain licensing configuration in the EVNG. It's available on the EVNG website also, step by step how to do it. But I'll send you a simple instruction guide so that you can also use that as well, right? Okay, so I got a very good question from Enrico. Is it a realistic topology? So if you go to the multi-protocol lab, they have a mixed objective here, to be honest. Initially, if you see the earlier CCIE exams, the topologies were not very realistic, like 6 routers, 4 switches, or these kind of things. But now the topologies are becoming more and more realistic. Plus, they also want to make sure that they incorporate all the topics they are asking you in the exam. And believe it or not, in real world, you don't use all the technologies in all the different companies or all the different implementations. So they had to create something which can incorporate all the technologies because they want to ask you all the things. Also, they wanted to make something which represents a real life scenario, or which you might also see in a campus environment or in an organization. So to answer your question, yes, there are some aspect of it which are similar to realistic examples. For example, the headquarter having the direct links with the data center, and the also having the connection to the internet from this router, you can see, or the branches are not physically connected to the data center or the headquarter. They are physically dispersed, maybe completely different locations. One is in New York, one is in London. So we need to make sure we take the help of another service provider to have these WAN links, right? So for example, here, if you see from router 61 to router 5, this is a WAN link because we are going to the service provider, right? We are going toward the WAN side. So if you configure SD-WAN, this is where this is the link which will be used to configure the transport links. So something like that. So yeah, it is a realistic, semi-realistic example, I would say. All right. So with that, that's it for today's session. I wanted to introduce our course. I wanted to make sure that EVNG part is clear. So make sure that you set it up properly today. And if you have any issues, feel free to send me an email and let me know what issue you are getting, maybe a screenshot of the issue as well, so that we can fix it, right? And don't worry, initial 2 or 3 days, we have simple things like this week, we have 2 more sessions. One is the CDP, which is a very simple lab. And the second is the subnetting, which is not simple, but subnetting is not a configuration lab. So you don't do it on EVNG, right? It's just a subnetting practice. So you do have this week. So this week you have to make sure your EVNG is properly set up, everything is working properly, so that from next week when we start other labs, you don't have any issue, right? So we have plenty of time for that part. So that's it for today. Just let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Kenneth. Alexander, David, Anthony. And who is JC? What is the, can you let me know your full name? Oh, John. Okay. Welcome, John. Welcome to the class. Thanks, Luis, Enrico. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.